Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another RPI Consultants webinar Wednesdays. My name is John. I'm going to be talking to you today about digital signature solutions for the new normal. The new normal is likely to be a little bit more work from home, a little bit more on the go, a little bit more device friendly. So we're going to talk about some options about how you can, some options for digital signatures, electronic signatures, and how they can integrate with existing business solutions. If at any time you have any questions, please feel free to submit those via the GoToWebinar questions pane. You just click in there, type your question, and we will address that. I'm talking to you today from, I've escaped quarantine and I'm coming to you live from our office here in Kansas City. So thanks for joining us. We have some other content coming up. Later this afternoon, I'm going to be talking about SharePoint and Office 365. It's really a little bit broader than that. SharePoint, Flow, Teams, really how to leverage your Office 365 investment. Next month, we are going to be doing 2 webinars on June 3rd, migrating Kofax to Kofax Total Agility from Capture and our Kofax transformation. There's a new program that Kofax has released to enable that. We're also going to be doing a webinar on upgrading to Kofax Process Director 7.8, so that is specifically for people using Process Director for SAP. This webinar today is on the scale of high level to technical, slightly more high level. For the much more technical version of this content, join me for our office hours next Friday, the 15th. I'll be implementing some actual digital signature solutions, probably using DOCUSIGN, ADOBE Sign, maybe some others. And we can, those office hours, I encourage you to collaborate with me. Tell me what kind of content you would like to see, some integrations we can build together so that we can explore solutions. At the end of the month, we also have another office hours that builds on the one we did last week, where we kind of did an intro to Kofax RPA. We're going to be expanding on that to explore some system and database integrations with Kofax RPA. Additionally, RPI is doing something new in our new virtual environment. We're hosting what we're calling Virtual User Exchange. This is essentially a virtual user group. That's going to be 2 weeks from Friday on May 21st. It's an all-day session. It's all virtual. There's a cool piece of software we're using that encourages collaboration, use of webcams, chatting, not just between the hosts and the audience, but amongst the audience as well. This is essentially a user group, so we'll have a few different tracks. 75% of the content is targeted at our Infor Lawson clients. However, my team is doing a track around API automation, process automation, things like that. So please, if you're interested, register at rpic.com/view, VUE. Many of you know me, but for the ones who don't, my name is John Marney. I'm the practice manager here at RPI over the content and process automation team. That team is 20 or so people delivering solutions on various platforms, custom development, Perceptive, Hyland, Kofax, Microsoft products, what have you. I've been doing this for around 10 years, and I've gotten pretty okay at home haircuts, I think. At least my wife isn't disappointed. Our agenda today: what are digital signatures? Why use digital signatures? Then we'll touch on a few different digital signature software platforms. And when I say touch on, these are high-level overviews, and it is a few pieces of software, and there are dozens of solutions out there available. We'll discuss integrations and what those might look like with your existing platforms, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, disclaimer, yada, yada, yada. Especially with this content, the digital signature solutions are rapidly changing. So it's true, what I'm telling you is true to the best of my ability right now. However, this is likely to be out of date in a year, and so that'll give us an excuse to go do another webinar on it. So we'll see you this time next year. What are digital signatures? The first thing to make sure that I convey is that digital signatures are a technical term. It is a type of electronic signature. Electronic signatures or e-signatures or e-sig. E-sig sounds like a cigarette, so I probably don't want to use that one. E-signatures are just a representation of a signature on a page, right? Electronic signature. That could be done through some sort of notation or, actually signing on a pad or a number of different ways. Digital signatures are more than that. Digital signatures are authentication to make sure that the actual signature is who they say they are, the content hasn't changed, etc. So it's authentication for both the sender and the recipient. Both sides can have some security to know that the document or content that they are providing signature for is coming from the actual source or going to the actual signer. Document version control. So if the document has been changed in the signing process or has been altered, you can establish versioning or reject the whole thing. Offers security. So you know who has signed it, where it's been signed, how they signed it, whether it's been modified. It also establishes security in the traditional sense of preventing people who you don't want access to this document from seeing, viewing, or modifying. So again, since digital signatures are a technical term, I'm going to touch on some more of the technical topics of digital signatures. But throughout this presentation, I will be conflating electronic signatures and digital signatures quite a bit. So some of the tech stuff for digital signatures. So each signing and each document has a unique hash generated. What this hash does is it prevents any changes or invalid signers. So the hash is a unique key that contains the entire signing chain as well as the content of the document. And so signature validity can be referenced against that hash. And if a signer who isn't that person signs, then that hash is no longer valid and it will reject the entire process. The hash essentially acts like a fingerprint for the data, a fingerprint for the signers. Encrypted messages and data. So this is, digital signatures make use of private key encryption and public key decryption. The best way to think of this is if you file your taxes on TurboTax or another tax filing website, you have to enter a PIN, and that PIN becomes your part of your private key encryption. However, on the other side, the IRS has a public key to decrypt that tax return data. And so essentially what this allows for is it can only be signed by intended authorized individuals, and it can only be the people who start the chain can only do it by providing the encryption, which creates the hash. Touching briefly on regulatory and oversight, there's a number of laws or acts listed here that govern some of the both electronic signatures and digital signatures. I can say that I'm not a legal expert, so I'm not going to try and advise you on what's legal and what's not. However, the general advice is that electronic signatures in most situations, but especially digital signatures in most situations, are equivalent to a wet signature. So I have always advised all my clients when implementing digital signing solutions that consult a lawyer, but you should be good. And I will say that all of the products that we're going to review today have listed on their websites that they are compliant with at least the United States and European Union laws governing electronic signatures. So if you think digital signatures aren't, and we're going to dive into this a little further later in the presentation, but they are not a replacement for other digital workflows. If you're going to try and build out an entire enterprise digital workflow inside of an e-signature platform, you're probably barking up the wrong tree. They aren't required in every signing situation. So again, there is a difference between digital signatures and electronic signatures, but even those aren't necessarily required in signing, where signing approval or review situations may just require a digital fingerprint of some kind to indicate that the document or content was put in front of the person. And all electronic or digital signatures aren't created equal. And what I mean by that is all platforms aren't equal. The rules governing what a digital signature has to be mean that the actual outcome of using a digital signature is probably likely to be the same, but the way we get there is vastly different. Okay, Okay. So why use digital signatures? Well, besides the obvious, or maybe this is all obvious, the number one, right? Part of the reason that we're talking about this right now is business continuity. Anytime we can take a workflow and put it into a secure digital system, that gives us a lot more flexibility within our operating environment. So right now we have COVID-19, we have stay-at-home orders, but this could be any crisis or disruption. This could be disaster planning for your local environment. We have plenty of clients in Florida who have shutdowns during hurricane season off and on. So this is not just a one-time thing. Hopefully COVID-19 is a one-time thing, but disaster planning or crisis and disruption are part of our daily lives. And so this using a digital signature platform allows us to continue rapid processing and turnaround of documents. So how does it do that? Digital signatures or electronic signatures allow for really some pretty lightweight workflows. So if you're commonly using platforms such as Perceptive or Hyland or anything else, some of them have ability to spin up quick workflows better than others, but they're all relatively heavy lift to get something new in place. Most e-sig platforms that I have used are really low complexity and they're very quick to roll out and to do things ad hoc. They're easy to automate. So many of the softwares allow for signing templates that facilitate easy reuse, and I'm actually going to show this really briefly later in the presentation. It is so mobile focused. These platforms were developed primarily for this purpose to do signing on the go, and they were developed in an era where that was really a requirement. So practically every platform is cloud only. That's not always true, but everything is very device friendly. From signing something with your finger, if you want to have an actual signature, to just stamping a signature that already exists onto a document. It really facilitates, primarily digital signatures on contracts and legal documents. It can also reduce the physical storage and, of course, the retention policies for those types of documents. And again, back to that, when are digital signatures not required? Really, primarily, signatures are going to be needed on things like legal documents. Reduce cost of mailing and shipping documents. If you're trying to replace a still paper-based physical process, the cost of mailing and shipping will essentially zero. And I think you'll find that for small monthly fees for most of these softwares, you can find ROI in that alone, even if not evaluating the soft costs of the speed at which things can be improved. Faster processing, right? It goes without saying that digitizing means, especially if we're not mailing anymore, that things are that items or approvals are presented to users faster. And on top of that, with this last bullet, there's visibility, there's notifications, there's reminders. You can't lose sight of things that require signatures. So some use cases, and this is by all means not exhaustive, and I'm not going to dive into every single one, but if you've ever bought a house, you have probably used a digital signing solution to sign off on an offer, or you sold a house on your home with your disclosure. Any statements of work, if you've done work with RPI, then you have pretty likely used DOCUSIGN, where we do much of our digital signing. In finance, AP, supply management, all sorts of vendor contracts and agreements, that's the other side. If we send you a statement of work. Really anything that requires a signature is a good use case. So when to reconsider these digital or electronic signatures? Again, when not required. I would say that, so an example of this, something that we do all the time, accounts payable invoice approvals. You don't need electronic signatures, right? That's a level of complexity you don't need. What you need is just something to indicate approval that is referenceable and auditable later. That said, I'm going to flip-flop a little bit. There can still be value in the e-signature ease of use for some cases, even when it's not required. So I definitely wouldn't discount e-signature solutions if it's not required because they can be so handy. High volume, non-legal workflows. So if you're doing something very repeated with lots of documents, lots of users, these probably aren't necessarily the greatest solutions. If nothing else, it's because of the pricing that will go into it. So some platforms are priced by signing, some are priced by document, some are priced by number of users. So in the case where you have a really high volume environment, and when I say high volume, I mean thousands per month, maybe even tens of thousands per month, you probably want to look into more traditional workflows, which can still make use of digital signatures, but maybe not the ease of use side. High workflow complexity is another reason to reconsider. So anything that's really logic heavy require really careful selection of the product and the implementation. So again, it's not to say that these platforms can't handle it. It's more that you're probably going to end up doing some custom development through their API or SDK to really get what you want. And I would definitely not consider these replacement for traditional ECM or business process management. It's easy to enhance those products with electronic signatures, but I wouldn't generally consider them a replacement. Now, could they replace some components or even some processes or departments inside of those platforms? Perhaps. Okay, so I have picked out 4 or 5 different softwares to provide a little bit of a breakdown between some differences, some features, and I'm going to give you a quick comparison of those. I think this one got out of order. So we're going to skip it. Okay, first one, Adobe Sign. So these first 2 are ones that I've actually used, I've actually integrated with, and I picked another couple that, just for the sake of comparison, are maybe slightly less popular. And I have done some research into their feature set, how they market themselves, their pricing, to try and give a fair evaluation. So Adobe Sign, probably one of the number 1 or top 2 softwares available for electronic signatures. I would say it's a benefit in that it has a really simple UI on the user side, probably simpler than any of the others. And all of them are fairly simple, so that's saying something. I think it's cheapest for the highest number of users, and the reason I say that is because they offer packages where the price doesn't increase per user, so you get chunks of user licenses. It does offer native integrations in Microsoft. So if you are a user of Teams or SharePoint, you can see that there's an Adobe Sign integration ready to go. You can install it as an app. It also has other integrations to other Adobe products. So, practically speaking, that's Acrobat and Reader. It is a little lighter on the feature set. And so the reason I say that is because a company like Adobe isn't necessarily going to be trying to cram every feature into Adobe Sign, right? They're going to say, well, we have this available for subscription. Maybe that's okay. DocuSign, again, we use a DocuSign internally. DocuSign really promotes, even more than other signers, the security of which their signatures, that their digital signatures have. They offer some really easy to use templating for different types of documents that, similar types of documents that require signing but maybe have a little differences, including anchoring values in a page so that it can dynamically change, but you can still apply the template. Middle of the road pricing, so they're not the best, they're not the worst. I would say they are the industry leader. Many people claim that they're the industry leader, but if you look at number of users, number of organizations, number of individual signings, they're probably the best. If I had to pick a criticism, there's probably a better user experience out there. Again, I haven't used every single piece of software, so I can't say that for sure, but I would even venture to say maybe the Adobe software has a slightly better user experience, but it's really apples to apples. So a couple pieces of software that I didn't necessarily or haven't necessarily integrated with or used, but I did do a fair amount of research. And again, there are dozens of different applications. So I picked a couple that were fairly commonly used and reviewed. but not necessarily at the level of DocuSign or AdobeSign. So the first, PandaDoc. PandaDoc markets itself as a little bit more than just electronic signatures. So it does have that as an isolated feature, but it really also wants to be a much larger document management system. It does offer document creation, which is a little bit of a point that some of the other softwares try to stay away from. So actual document generation. Instead of just having signing templates, you may actually have templates to do actual document generation. And a lot of their focus around that is on the sales or CRM. So they want to be able to be your go-to for generating proposals, generating sales orders, things like that, and also integrating right into the electronic signatures. They did have the best free tier that I saw. In fact, I don't know whether it's a limited offering right now or something that they always do, but you can actually sign up and begin using unlimited, I think it was unlimited transactions on their free tier, just for signing. Another one was EVERSIGN. You can tell a lot about a product by what are they marketing themselves as on their website. I will say that EVERSIGN had the cheapest unlimited plan. So I believe it was $10 a user or something like that. Whereas the cheapest plans for the other softwares I'm evaluating still had limits on the number of transactions. And even for an organization like RPI that doesn't do a ton of document output, we still need unlimited plans because we're eclipsing the very low bars of something like 10 or 20 documents going out a month. So unlimited is generally pretty important unless it's extremely light use. Not quite as integration friendly. They don't have the library of integrations that the other three had readily available, and also less automation capability. They didn't really have the API published that the others did. All three other softwares had APIs available. Whether they could do everything and anything you want is dependent on the use case. And EVERSIGN does have some, but it's probably not as friendly. So a quick chart of just some quick thoughts on me about how I would rate these on different categories. And I'm not going to run through everything here, but who I would recommend it for, the rating on cost, ease of use, integrations, features. I'd be happy to evaluate other pieces of software. We also have done integrations with AsureSign, which is another great signing software. We've also done Kofax SignDoc, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. So there's so many different options out there. And again, if you have something already and you would like to see whether it can do what you need, if it's your requirements, I'm happy to help you evaluate that. So real quick on Kofax SignDoc, I would be remiss as a wonderful Kofax partner if I did not talk about some of the unique benefits that SignDoc offers. So unlike, I think, the other four products that I talked about, very few of these products actually offer an on-premise solution. So in some security situations or some unique use cases, that's a requirement. So that is available, and that's useful too because it has out-of-the-box integration with Kofax Communications Manager, which is their document output software, and then Kofax Total Agility, which is the workflow or BPM software. It does offer online or offline signing, which isn't unique to them, but because of its the extensive SDK that really offers the broadest array of solutions available to you. So you can completely white label SignDoc. Nobody has to even know that it's Kofax or SignDoc at all, and it's deeply integrated with your other software solutions, and integration with signing hardware such as tablets, signing pads, and all sorts of things like that. Okay, so let's talk about integrations. So how do we actually make use of these? How do we get them into our environment? Where can I integrate? So the first type of system that you might want to integrate these with, and probably the hardest to do, are going to be your ERPs or your line of business software. So for some ERPs are doing document generation already, right? You've got a sales order, you've got a purchase order, you've got things that it's doing. I know for Infor, for our Cloud Suite customers, the Infor document management platform has a lot of native document generation capabilities. But what if we actually needed to leverage digital signatures on top of that? We could absolutely leverage the integrations between your ERP and digital signing solution to send it through that subflow before actually generating the output, or we could do it after the output. We could have the version controlling all stacked within that if you wanted to store the unsigned and signed versions. There's absolutely a lot of capability there. Sometimes records in your ERP or line of business software just have a flag, right? Approved. Has this been viewed? Has this been signed? So we can update those before or after going through a digital signature process, likely using the APIs within the digital signing. Approval flows, right? Traditional document approval. Again, these are probably more oriented to the sales or the requisition side than they are necessarily anything else. However, it could be something like in a human resources scenario. We want to sign have a CEO signature appear on a check to a charitable organization. This would be a way to do something like that without having to actually fetch the check off the printer and get it in front of the CEO, which is something else that we're struggling with right now. And it's storage and reference. So if these platforms are your primary storage device, leveraging the signing utility, or the signing utility can be leveraged for storage and for reference on top of that. Okay. ECM or BPM software. So we're talking, the traditional workflow products, right, where a lot of these actions might be taking place right now. A sort of unseen benefit to a lot of the signing or electronic signatures are document conversion. So to ensure security of the document that's being signed, they're almost universally going to be converted to PDFs. So if I have a Word document or something else that I want to apply signatures to, that software will handle that for me. And it's nice because I get this verified, nicely formatted PDF back from the software, where I might have to handle that within my own flows right now. Version controlling, again, the digital signature platform can handle that. Maybe your platform also can. So whether you want one platform or the other to handle that, you have options. Document generation and output. So again, we're talking about things like Kofax Communication Manager, Hyland document composition, other document composition softwares, even SharePoint. As soon as that document generation or output takes place, we can send that directly into the digital signing flow. But then the most common use case is going to be that the digital signing flow isn't the only thing we need to do. We need to either trigger a workflow after the signing takes place or trigger signing based on some other workflow. And so that's where we have the ability to leverage all the technologies we're already using to easily get documents and content into digital signing. So whether that's using a Microsoft Flow or Logic app, an RPA tool like Kofax RPA, or any of the other iScript inside of Perceptive, Unity scripts inside of OnBase, we would, for something like a SureSign or DocuSign, if we wanted to integrate that with ImageNow, we would generally call that API for those products directly from ImageNow to transfer the document and the information over. And then in turn, would more than likely leverage integration server for the return. And maybe just archive, right? Many of the ECM platforms are used primarily for a document archive. So something goes through the digital signing flow and we want to have a place to store that permanently. Our ECM platform, we can send those as the final resting place so that we're not trying to manage the retention inside of the digital signing platform. Microsoft Office, right? And it's not just Office, it's really Microsoft blank. Many of them have add-ins or extensions that you can use. SharePoint has, like I mentioned, SharePoint and Teams both have native Adobe Sign, like out-of-the-box apps. You can see I have a little picture of my Teams window with Adobe Sign app installed. Word, I have a little video right after this slide of the Word integration for DocuSign. We use this internally every day to send documents for signing. So let's talk about this. So I'm in Teams, actually, and I'm going to open up this Word document. And you see the DocuSign integration. I'm going to click Request Signatures. It's going to go ahead and pop open the document and automatically export it as a PDF to DocuSign. On this document, I'm going to select Apply a Template, which already has some anchor values. And you'll see those already mapped out, the different fields of information I want. I'm going to send it on. I'm going to open up my email where I've already received the signature, click it, and I apply my signature to the document, and it's done. So I hope that GIF came through okay. This is the first time I'm using the GIFs instead of actual videos, so that we don't have to mess with flipping back and forth between videos with audio that never seems to play and things like that. So that's just to give you an idea of what how easy those Office integrations are to use. And it can even be automated further than this. I'm clicking through a few things that really aren't necessarily like applying the template. Those things can be automated. Okay. So summary, questions, additional resources. So again, if you have questions, we've had a couple come in. If you have any, please feel free to throw them into the GoToWebinar questions pane. We had a couple questions about AssureSign. So we do actually I believe we resell AssureSign in conjunction with our Yoga Forms product for digital signing. Unfortunately, I don't know a ton about it without doing a little research. I'm happy to do that, and discuss it a little further on our Friday office hours on May 15th. I need to circle back with our Yoga Forms product manager. As much as I would love to know every product even that we service, unfortunately, I don't. So. But as far as core, I know that as far as core capabilities, it compares fairly favorably with DocuSign in terms of, field positioning, what types of data it can capture, building, light logic into signing workflows. The types of things that you're going to find that really differentiate the products are fairly use case specific. And what they intend to focus on. So an example of that is the PANDA product I talked about earlier. They have focused very heavily on being a product they market to sales and CRM providers. So I think that, and everyone's trying to kind of carve out their niche, because if I haven't made this clear, the core feature set across all these products is really pretty standard. And so my advice to anybody shopping for a product is find something that you like, that you believe has a good roadmap, that you think fits in, with your environment, and build around that instead of trying to find something that's a perfect product for you, because it's unlikely that is going to exist. I had a question. So we had a question on regulation. So someone presented a law or statute around electronic signatures. Used heavily in FDA-regulated manufacturing. It doesn't have your digitally and required components. So the question is that the statute requires certain security features, essentially, so security, authenticity, and that it can't be repudiated by the signer. And the question is, do digital signatures or most electronic signatures fit those requirements? And the answer is yes. So if you look back to, and I'm not going to try and flip back to the correct slide, but I have a slide about the technical, some of the tech stuff around digital signatures. The entire point of digital signatures, and using that as a technical term over just electronic signatures, is that it fits those requirements. So by generating that, by leveraging the security that's built in, by having an issuing authority for having a certificate authority that issues the certificate to the person requesting signature or product requesting signature, and leveraging that certificate to create the hash, which is for signing events, for the document, for the data, that verifies that that it's authentic, that it's secure, again, because it's all encrypted, and that it cannot be repudiated by the signer. So yes, I hope that answers your question. Happy to talk about that more in depth. Again, not a lawyer, but these are the, we all are operating under the same parameters that the various laws have laid out for us, and many industries are making use of this technology. Every industry is making use of this technology. Any other questions? So just to wrap up, I am doing another webinar this afternoon in about 90 minutes on Office 365, SharePoint. I'm going to touch again on automation and digital signatures on that side. I think it's going to be a really interesting webinar. If you are one of those people like RPI who became an Office 365 subscriber within the last few years, and all of a sudden you have access to a whole bunch of tools that you don't necessarily know what they are, or what they do, or how they can help you, I think it could be a valuable session for you. So if you're interested, please hit up our website and rpic.com/webinars and sign up for that one as well. So just to recap real quick, we talked about what are digital signatures, why you would use them. We talked about some solutions, some specific softwares, and then we talked about how or why you might integrate with these digital signing solutions. Thank you for joining. I guess that's thicker stuff. Okay. There. Again, we're having our first ever virtual user exchange on May 21st. So especially for our Infor clients, please join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really interesting. Looking for feedback on how we can do these better or more often in the future. So registration there is at rpic.com/view. More webinars coming up. I detailed them at the beginning of the presentation, but you can always find them on rpic.com/webinars. Here they are again. Don't need to run through these a second time. Again, if you want to see more technical, in-depth demos, quiz me, explore some things together on actually setting some of this stuff up, please join me for office hours on May 15th in the afternoon. If you don't know about RPI, please let me tell you. We are 100+ full-time consultants in a professional services firm. We are partners with Infor, Kofax, and Hyland, among others. We are full stack professional and technical services. So new installations, upgrades, migrations, technical health checks, architectures, custom development, custom apps. We have our own suite of products called Yoga that fill a lot of gaps within business processes. And again, my team is the content and process automation team, where we do a lot of the Kofax and Hyland work. So that's it. I'm just going to double check that I didn't get any other questions. I did. Can you offer the SharePoint session another day too? Go ahead and sign up for it, and you will get a recording. So that's true for anybody. And I think that's it. So thank you.